All right, folks, we finally got out of the lower leg. We escaped, and now we can actually play around with the upper leg. And we're going to make this a lot faster. I'm going to show you a different method of making some mesh up here than the masking and extraction method, which I'm sure you've seen 100 times already, 10,000 maybe, who knows. But I want to show you another way of doing it using Z-spheres. Not in the adaptive skin way that you typically make with our maquettes or something, but with actual, we can actually draw out meshes using Z-spheres, which is actually really cool. It's a pretty old method, actually. I think it's been in here forever. But I want to show you one little thing. If I bring back my concept mesh, you'll see that it's shifted over a little bit. And the reason is simple. I realized after making this leg that these inner toes I had made were too long, and they would overlap if I didn't change the width of the stance. So I decided, instead of actually just having his legs like having him in the stance, I actually decided to make his legs actually come out further, more of a mechanical kind of way, a wider stance. So I did a Z-sphere adaptive skin, and this is kind of like the basis for it. Okay, so it's kind of the idea here is the legs are going to kind of come out more, and it's going to be, I think, more of a visual representation of the pistons and stuff that connect it that way. I'll probably use a good portion of this actual mesh here as an underpinning, as an undergarment essentially, or under whatever you want to call it for the armor. And also I can use this as a basis for extraction, obviously. This is really just, again, it's just a shape to kind of give me a guide, but this necessity to shift the legs out actually might work in my favor, and it's good to be willing to change the overall shape if necessity requires it, and also then to try and find a way to turn it into an advantage. But what I want to do for this mesh creation here, I'm going to duplicate this guy right here, duplicate this mesh. I'm going to duplicate it, and this is going to be the one I'm going to use as the kind of the basis for my mesh drawing here. But I want to get rid of this top part because it's going to get in my way, which is why I duplicated it. I want to keep one with a full body, but I want to use this as just a leg guide. So I'm going to use my select lasso here and hide all of that, and then I'm going to delete hidden, and this is just going to be here to kind of accept the curve, the mesh I'm making. Now, how do we make a mesh with Z-spheres? All right, so what I want to do is go and grab a Z-sphere. So I'm just going to change my tool from this guy to a Z-sphere, and all I have is just one little sphere here. I don't need to move it at all. I'm just going to go down here. When you have a Z-sphere selected, you have certain menus that pop up: Z-sketch, rigging, topology, things that you can use Z-spheres for. Now I'm going to go to rigging, and I'm going to choose select mesh, and I'm going to choose, obviously, the mesh we just got done playing with, which is, where is he? He's somewhere. There he is. Select that mesh, and you can see that it appears ready to go. If I go to topology and choose edit topology, I can now go onto this mesh down here and start drawing with my brush. So if I want to have that side panel we were just looking at on the thigh, I can just click and start drawing mesh here. And I'm just going to draw the overall shape of the mesh I'm looking for. And you want to keep in mind that we do need to go in here and turn this into an actual mesh, like by adding quads and so forth. Now, you don't need to actually draw in every line. ZBrush will fill it in if you want to. I tend to do it because I'm just that way. But I want to go back up to this and start here. Hold down the Control and click to restart your spot, and then go up to here and add that in here. Control click. So I'm just basically just creating a mesh by clicking on vertices here and just making myself a very basic quad based mesh. So I'm just going to draw this out. Okay, and I can just draw another row here. You thought watching extraction was dull. You have no idea. You're watching me draw squares, you lucky devils. Now, it's not necessarily a horrible thing if there's triangles in this case. I don't like them, so I'm going to make sure I don't have them. That's just the way I was I was I was raised not to like triangles. Oops, mistake. Okay, so here, here, here. So I'm just gonna just sketch this out and put one right here. All right, so we have quads, quads, quads. Let's make sure we keep with the quad idea. And let's just go here. Oops. I love that wonderful sinking feeling you get when you're thinking, wait a minute, is this going to work? It probably will. I mean, the cool thing about something like this is that it's hard to screw up, because if you need to add another row, you just add another row. Of course, it still is possible to screw up, and I will find a way. Okay, control. Okay, let's grab this guy here. Nice. I'm gonna click here. Oops. Control. Click here. Nope. Let's click here and add a face one more time. Okay. Control. Click here, and I want to add a face right here. Control. Click. Click. See, it's getting to crunch time now. We have to see how we can make this work. So let's bring it up here again. I'm going to hold down Control. Click here. I'm going to add another row. And let's see here. Maybe add one more row here. And we're almost there. So close. Okay. So I could have one right there. I'm just going to try here. And that'll give me quads. Not pretty quads, but they're quads. And I might want to add another row here. So let's see if I can. That's nah, I'll just move it later on. Okay, so now if I just oops. Okay, so now if I hit let me see here. If I get out of here, enter. If I go to adaptive skin and see preview, you can see where we have our adaptive skin here. And first thing, I want to actually bring my density down to 1, so I can keep my edges here a little bit. And I want to let's get out of preview for a second. Now I want to look at my skin thickness here, because I do want to extract this essentially, and skin thickness allows me to do that. Now if I go upward with skin thickness, it's going to actually make the skin come out. But if I can go negatively, then I'll kind of force it in, which is probably better for what I'm looking for here. So let's just see here. If I go out a little bit here, I get an idea for thickness of preview. All right, not very thick. So let's get out of that preview, and I'll just crank this up a little bit here, like 0.08 preview. That's getting better, but still not great. So let's try 0.18. That's more like it. So I'm going to go to negative 0.18. Okay, then do preview. There it is. I'm going to make adaptive skin. Okay, so now I actually have a mesh that is drawn that way, and it is right here, skin Z-sphere 1. So I'm going to go back to my original guy, which is right here, and now I can simply append that. I can go to append, append skin Z-sphere 1, but I'm not going to actually do it yet. What I have to do first, I remember now, is skin Z-sphere 1 is still not actually a 3D mesh, I don't think. I have to make it a polymesh 3D. At least I think that's what happened. I think I tried it before and didn't work for me, so I'm pretty sure that's what it was. In any case, let's get back to my guy again, and now I'll append that. And this new mesh here is, where I want it to be. And if I select it, I think I tried to select it, but I don't think it did. Let's grab it again. There you go. If I go to polyframe mode, you'll see it's very kindly given me edge loops on the edge, and it's also, if you look closely, you got a little dotted line there. It's creased the edges for me. So when I subdivide this, it'll keep those edges fairly sharp, which is very, very good. We kind of want that. So we made our mesh, and let's see how well it conforms to our guy here. Let me turn off this so I can see. Okay, so it does kind of curl forward a little bit here, which we can do. But aside from that, it deviates from it a little bit, but we can definitely just use our move tool and morph it a little bit more. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, first of all, grab my main mesh here and hide the arms so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay, and I'm going to select this leg here, and I'm just going to start pushing it around a little bit. You can see, obviously, I'm not going to go by where the mesh is. I'm just going by. I just want to shift a little bit where the mesh goes. I'm going to bring it forward a little bit like this. I can use my clipping brushes, obviously, or my H polish brushes to tweak that a little bit. I think I'm going to use my H polish brush a little more on this guy to kind of just make the edges a little bit more flat. I can actually go in here and give it almost like a bevel by playing with my H polish brush. It's actually a really powerful brush once you get the mesh at a certain resolution to really just polish off those edges, which I guess is why they call it an H polish brush. See, it's that kind of insight that makes you tune in, I'm sure. All right, so this is a decent little shape here. It curves out a little bit down here, but that's actually maybe pretty cool. And again, let's pretend that we're brilliant even without realizing it, and that's why things like that happen. I like pretending that. All right, so we have our mesh here, and we did it by using a Z-sphere and just drawing out the mesh. And sometimes that's a little bit easier than doing the masking thing. It might take longer sometimes, but for shapes that are a little bit more difficult to kind of get, you can really just take your time and use those tools. Now, what I want to do, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to go to my geometry tab here. I'm going to delete my lower levels because I really have no need for them. Because there's no way I'm going to get any lower than this. I'm going to get much higher, hopefully. So, but I do want to give this a little bit some edge loops here. I want to kind of give this a little bit more of an interesting edge. So let's hold down Control and Shift and click to make that go away. And I'm going to give me an edge loop. And this edge loop is just going to hold that edge. Now I want to remove that also from my vision here, so I can go down to visibility and shrink my visibility, and that one little edge loop will go away. I'm going to add another edge loop now to kind of hold this edge. And now I'm going to shrink that. And now with this little edge loop here, I'm just going to go to my deformation palette here and just deflate it a little bit. I want to push that in a little bit and see how this looks. Then bring everything back and turn off polyframe. You see, you just get a nice little edge there like that. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I think that's just kind of a cool thing to do. It gives it a little bit, it'll catch light a little bit differently if you're rendering with a certain lighting setup, and it just looks prettier, in my opinion. Sometimes the flat edges just look, well, they look a little flat, and sometimes flat edges look flat because they're flat, and flat things don't always look good if they're edges. So that's the flat lesson for the day. I'm going to subdivide this one more time, twice more, and now it's looking nice and smooth. And we can play around with actually, some details on the surface here. Maybe one more subdivision. What I want to do is I'm going to smooth this out a little bit here, and I can play around with giving it some harder edges. Like if I go to my H polish brush, I can kind of almost like bevel part of it off like this to kind of give it the it's almost like it's got plates, or that it's kind of separated like that with edges, and that can actually be kind of cool for something like this, something that kind of has a curve to it. And if it's too curvy, it might look a little fake because if it's supposed to be both hard edged like armor would be, maybe a little bit of hardness to it is not a bad idea, like a beveled edge, like I said. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit. But before we end this lesson here, I just want to dig in this a hole in here. You see how this leg has this kind of little turbine in here. I think of that as kind of like a heat fan to kind of get rid of whatever heat is the result of whatever processes this guy has going on in his thigh. So I'm going to flatten this part out right here because this is where I want to put that exhaust. I'm going to smooth out just a little bit for now because I'm not sure how I want this to work. I'm going to go to my trim hole brush, and right around here I'm just going to push in like that, and that'll kind of give me that nice little edge I'm looking at, that nice little indentation. Now the obvious question is, what do we put in here? Well, you have 1,000 things to choose from, and I'm going to go to my insert mesh brush, BI, Now you can look at industrial parts, which is not really very helpful. Mostly it's like screw heads, which is a little too small. But machine parts will give us some things to choose from. Hit the M key to look to cycle through the meshes. So we got some cool things like this. Turbines are pretty cool. Or I can go to brush, insert mesh. I'm going to go to the steam gears. Even though they're gears, they do have some pretty cool looking things. So I can hit the M key again and find something neat. Something like that might be pretty cool. So I'm going to grab that. Maybe that one. Or maybe this one. Nah, I'm going to go with this one. This one looks a little bit nicer. And you might be wondering, by the way, do I feel like I'm cheating because I'm using insert mesh brushes? And the answer is emphatically no. And here's why. Because this is not high difficulty stuff. These are just gears, which could be made fairly quickly in any 3D package. And therefore, I'm just going to, I'm telling myself that I'm just doing myself a favor. I'm saving myself the trouble of just going back into Maya, to make a gear, because it's just a gear. Everyone can make gears. That's what I'm going to tell myself, and it's true. I think if I was doing an insert mesh for a character or a hand, perhaps I might feel like I was skipping out on something which is hard, because hands, at least for me, are hard. But for something like this, I think we can let ourselves slide a bit here. So I'm going to go to my scale tool. I just want to scale this up a little bit and make sure it's centered. And the center part, well, I'm going to add something right there in the center as well. So let's do that. Let's go back to our insert mesh brush, and maybe I'll try machine parts and see if we find something we like better here. Something like this, this little cap. I'm just going to go right in here and just draw that baby right in the center, and then move him outward, obviously, so we can have him. There's like a little cap on there. Let's move him forward. All right, just to to make it seem like there's some reason why there's something there. If that wasn't there, I'd just see a flat surface behind it, which would kind of defeat the purpose. So there we go. So that's just another way of creating some meshes. And again, you can do that, for something like this. The cool part is you can do that and you can determine for yourself where you want the topology to flow. So if I want to actually draw something like this or indent something like this on this mesh, I can actually draw my topology, and use those lines to kind of give myself an easier time of it. And that's kind of the way you do it when you retopologize things for like faces around eyes and mouths and so forth. So I'm going to just make a couple more. And for things like this with the circles, I'm going to actually simply draw a mask on top of it and extract it with the circles in it, just to kind of give it some visual interest. But for the purposes of time, and so you don't have to see the same things over and over and over again, I'm going to pause the video. Actually, I'll stop the video here, and I'll just do the next couple of little pieces of topology the exact same way. Add in some some doodads and details, and we'll start moving into the torso in the next video, so we can get moving on the rest of the guy. That's where the fun really starts. So I'll see you in the next video with the torso on deck.